No human can presume to know the language of God or the language of the gods. However, some languages are considered sacred because of their religious affiliations as well as the texts that are written in these languages. So here are 10 of the most sacred languages in the entire world. What's happening, FTD fam? Welcome back to another episode. My name is Leroy Kenton. And now, what's considered a holy or sacred language is largely based on personal interpretation. And in this episode, this is not to determine which language is the most sacred of all, but rather it's to look at languages that are commonly considered sacred when compared to others. Okay, so let's get into this list. At number 10, we have the King James English. So if you're not familiar, the King James Version of the Bible, also known as KJV, and it's also called the Authorized Version or King James Bible, is an English translation of the Bible that was published in the year 1611. Now, the English that's read in the King James Bible was an English unlike anything that people had read before. It had a poetic style to it, and its language use was different. So to many people, the King James Version of the Bible sounded like it was literally the words of God. Next up at number 9, we have Avestan. The Avesta is a primary collection of the religious text of Zoroastrianism, which is believed by many scholars to be the oldest organized monotheistic religion in the world, and it's composed in Avestan, which is an early Iranian language. Now, scholars traditionally classify Iranian languages as old, middle, and new according to their age, and as Western or Eastern according to their geography. And based on this, Avestan is classified as Eastern Old Iranian. The next sacred language to look at next is Pali. Native to the Indian subcontinent, it is widely studied because it is the language of the Pali Canon, as well as it's the sacred language of Theravada Buddhism. In early times, it was written in the Brahmi script. Pali's use as a Buddhist canonical language started because the Buddha opposed the use of Sanskrit as a way to convey his teachings, and he actually encouraged his followers to use everyday common dialects. And over time, though, his orally transmitted sayings and teachings, they spread through India to Sri Lanka and to other parts of the world. At number 7, we have Chinese, and this is sometimes not necessarily seen as a sacred language, but there are 3 separate canons of Buddhist scriptures, and the Mahayana Sutras are part of what's called the Chinese canon. And many of these sutras are also included in the Tibetan canon. And now, Mahayana Buddhism was originally founded during the Kushan Empire and spread to China, and that's when various schools and sects began to develop, and then they spread further and became more popular in other Asian countries. A man by the name of Tao An, born 312 to 385, he was a pioneer Chinese Buddhist monk, and he helped the spread of Buddhism in China through his work in translating the Buddhist scriptures into the Chinese language. Number 6 brings us the language of Greek. Greek is a language in which the New Testament of the Bible was written. It is also the language in which all of the first Christian religious texts were written in. Greek is also used as the main language of the church in the Greek Orthodox Church, and it's one of the oldest holy languages in the world, although it is not used in the exact form anymore. Halfway to number 5, of course, we have to mention the language Latin. Just like Greek is the language of the Bible, well, Latin is the language of the church. The Roman Catholic Church was based in Italy, and Latin, the language of the Italians, thus had a big monopoly over the matters relating to the church. Now, some of the major religious texts in the later part of Christianity had been written in this language also. And by the way, Italian language stems directly from Latin. Some people get them confused. They say Italian is Latin. No, Italian comes from Latin, just like other Romance languages like French and Spanish and Catalan and Portuguese and Romanian and some other lesser languages. Moving on now to number 4, we have the language Sanskrit. Sanskrit is the language of the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, which is a part of the Hindu epic Mahabharata. as well as the Puranas and the Upanishads and the various other liturgical texts. Sanskrit is also the language of most Hindu rituals. Sanskrit is also a dead language for all practical purposes because nobody really uses it to communicate with people on an everyday basis. However, most Hindu rites, probably all of them actually, the Hindu rites, the pujas, and the rituals are completed only with the chanting of Sanskrit shlokas as well as hymns. Now, Sanskrit is also considered by many as the oldest language in the world, while others say that is perhaps just one of the oldest languages. We made it to our top 3, and number 3 brings us to Aramaic. The Aramaic language is a Semitic language of the northern central or northwestern group that was originally spoken by the ancient Middle Eastern people known as the Arameans. It was also most closely related to Hebrew, Syriac, and Phoenician, and was written in a script that's derived from the Phoenician alphabet. The language of Jesus and his disciples is also believed to be Aramaic, and the belief of this comes from the fact that it was the most popular language in Judea during the time of Jesus. Classical Arabic comes in at number 2. Islam uses classical or old Arabic as a language of instruction. The Quran is written in this old form of Arabic. Speaking a little bit more about classical Arabic, it's a form of Arabic that was used in literary texts in the 7th to the 9th centuries, and it's based on the medieval dialects of Arab tribes. Different dialects of Arabic are still spoken in the Gulf countries, but they are slightly different from Quranic Arabic. So classical Arabic itself is no longer a spoken language and is primarily used for religious purposes. If one desires to read the Quran in its original language, then a thorough study of classical Arabic is required. And we end this episode off at number 1, Hebrew. Hebrew is the language of the majority of the Old Testament of the Bible. Hebrew is the only sacred language in the world that is still living. And by the way, a living or dead language is based on how many people use it as their mother tongue. Hebrew had been a dead language actually since a time after Christ, but when the state of Israel was established in the year 1947, the new country adopted Hebrew as the national language. And now millions of Jews learned to speak and write in a language that had been dead for centuries. And there you have it, guys. That brings us to the end of this episode. This is a look at 10 of the most sacred languages in the entire world. Let me know all your thoughts and comments down below. And if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like. Also, if this is your first time here to FTD Facts, subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted. We post videos here daily, and we love to explore topics similar to this. So if you did enjoy it, definitely join the FTD Facts family, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode.